Hello everyone, and welcome to another one of our videos. Please take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy.
What's your Psycho X story? My last girlfriend on 2 separate occasions got drunk and fell down on the street. One time busting her bottom lip open. During heated drunk arguments and screaming, he hit me, and, help, he's beating me, while I tried to help her up. I've never been violent with a partner in my life. I stayed with this person for almost 2 years. The most emotionally abusive relationship I've ever been in. After we broke up, she continued to tell people that I had actually hit her until I shared screenshots of a convo we had when we were together of her admitting it was all a lie told in the heat of a drunken argument. But even then, my current partner tells me that women are still warning her of my history of abuse. I very rarely go out to bars or pubs anymore. Not even an ex, just a dude I went on one date with. We went to the movies and it was okay, but I wasn't interested in a second date. When he asked me for a second date, I politely told him I wasn't interested. He flipped. Started talking about how he had a dream about me before we met and he knew we were meant to be. Then threatened to end himself if I didn't go on a second date with him. I blocked him everywhere and changed my number. Multiple, brief stories about the same guy. We were off and on for 5 years. After him becoming super controlling for the last year, going through my phone, following me to work and school to see if I was actually there, so on, he broke up with me, and I realized enough was enough and I wouldn't take him back. I started dating my best friend shortly after. The following transpired from the day we broke up, until now. It's been 5 years. He shows up at my at the time boyfriend's house, peeks in through the windows of all the rooms including my boyfriend's 3-year-old's room looking for me. Used to drive by late at night, park his car a street over to watch for me. He left a bag full of contraceptives and toys, not mine, on boyfriend's front step with a note saying have fun with your whore. Posted my nudes and Facebook profile link with my phone number on 4chan. Bought the house across the street from me, and would tap on my window at 3 to 4 a.m. every morning. I was sitting outside my house with a friend and he showed up at the driver's side window waving a gun around threatening to shoot us. Showed up at my house with a gun and said he was going to kill me and then himself. I finally had him Baker acted and he talked himself out of it. And then called me to come get him. Would send me videos of him cutting his wrist. Still randomly calls me confessing his love for me and says if he doesn't wake up to me in 10 years he's going to kill himself. Harasses my friends when he sees them in public asking them to talk to me and convince me he loves me. He's married and has 2 kids. I'll never be free. I broke up with a girl. I use the term broke up with loosely because I thought we were friends with benefits and she took it a little more serious. Anyways, she said that she was pregnant. I know, only a little crazy. But she maintained this for about 9 months. She would send me pictures of ultrasounds, and after the baby was born, she'd send pictures of her breastfeeding, and in little outfits. She maintained all of this until the baby was about a week old and I asked for the paperwork to have the kid added to my benefits, and a DNA test. Once I tried to do what I thought was the right thing, despite my freaking the hell out, it came out that it was her friend's baby. She was nuts. He stole my car keys and I believed I lost them. The first time I got back to my car from a movie with him while on a date. He had left for about 20 minutes twice during the movie. He ran off as soon as the movie was over and I got back and it was parked in a different spot, smelled like cigarettes and there were other people's clothes in it. I was so shocked I drove home and was too scared to tell my parents because I wasn't supposed to be at the movies. It was so unbelievable I didn't know what to say or do. The second time it happened, I asked him if I could park in his driveway because he lived right by my school and I had lost my parking privileges at the school and he was the only person I knew so close to campus. I got back from class and my car smelled like weed, all the gas was gone, seat was moved. I called the cops and he told them that I gave him permission. His word against mine, so they dropped it. He ended up going to jail for robbing an ATM not long after. He stole the remote to my family's front gate so he had access to my house at all times. We had to get an expensive security panel installed after that. Once I told him I was leaving my house to get coffee with my friend. I'd forgotten something so we drove back and I saw him walking towards my house with a duffel bag and someone I'd never seen before. The cops told me that they were very familiar with him and that he was a sociopath. I had to change my phone number and was terrified for months that I would run into him again. This is all the same person. Not really an ex per se, but this guy in my group of friends in college was really persistent even though I had a boyfriend at the time. When I stopped hanging out with him, he sent me pictures of his wrists slashed and pictures of him crying. Called my phone more than 50 times in an hour and told me he's gonna end himself. Blocked him from every social site and my phone too. He never did what he threatened to do. Luckily, we aren't in the same section next semester, so I never really saw him after that. I kicked her out of my apartment after I broke up with her. My roommate was watching television while she moved her stuff out. At one point he heard a struggle and some cracking coming from the bathroom. He walked into the biffy to investigate and found her holding the now broken toilet seat in her hand. She looked him in the eye and tearfully said, "I don't need this, but I bought it and he doesn't deserve it." She was slightly bipolar, but on meds, so it was fine. She was perfectly balanced. Well, she ended up slipping on some ice and messing up her back, so she went and got a steroid shot. The steroid shot really messing up the chemical balances in her brain, causing her to go manic. I was prepared to see her through it after we figured out what happened. Up until she went out and slept with some other dude. I was even willing to work through it, but she destroyed a couple of very expensive remote control planes when I confronted her. So she was gone. I dropped off all her shit at her dad's place and changed the locks. Nothing much happened for a couple of weeks. Then she showed up at my work, out of the blue, and proceeded to beat the hell out of my truck with a claw hammer. Cops were called, she got arrested. After about a month, she called me up apologizing. I shot her down and said I wasn't interested in pursuing a relationship with someone who destroyed my otherwise mint condition 1994 F-150 that I loved dearly. She flipped and started leaving these really weird voicemails. Eventually had to get a restraining order. Haven't heard from her since. Dated a super manipulator. Lied the entire time we dated. Found out she cheated on me with her boss. That was what started to peel away her false exterior. Soon after I found out she was addicted to painkillers when I had to miss work to go pick her up from her job, where she had a seizure. Found out eventually she took a mystery pill she found. Her excuse for using pills? She claimed to have miscarried, hint hint, she didn't and was never even pregnant, and couldn't cope. Found out the boss wasn't an isolated incident, she was also sleeping with my neighbor, randoms from the internet, had a 55-year-old sugar daddy, and an ex-con, who was giving her free pills. Routinely would cause fights with me and attack me physically, and due to her small stature, 4 feet 10 inches, I had no choice but to leave when it would happen. So she would cut herself to get me not to. Signed me up for joint credit cards without my permission, then maxed them, to the tune of $10,000. The final straw was when I finally got distance from her. She broke into my house to steal my dogs, and smashed some family heirlooms. Called the police and she just openly started punching me in the face in their presence. Got a no trespass order. She married the ex-con who was back in prison. This absolved me somehow of the debt. I think. Either way it disappeared. A guy that used to hit me for no reason. Never on the face though, always on the body or legs. Most days he was fine, some days he just lost his temper for the most trivial reasons. One that comes to mind was me sitting upstairs playing PS2 in the bedroom. We had a few broken floorboards up there and they were beside where I was sitting on the chair, so it made a noise anytime I moved ever so slightly. We both knew about this and knew it needed to be fixed. Anyway, he came upstairs and started yelling at me for banging on the floor, then flipped the chair over and I ended up on my back, still in the chair with a cut hand. I was going through a kind of bad time in life, so I let that stuff go on way longer than I should have, and just convinced myself it was my fault somehow. Looking back, it really wasn't my fault. The day I moved out of that place was pretty liberating. While he and I were together, back in 2007 to 2007, he manipulated me into thinking that I wasn't worth much without him. Every chance he had, he brought me down a peg or two. Basically taught me that my opinion didn't matter to him and he was clearly the man in charge. After a breakup, together for a little less than 1 year, he called me constantly from the bars, seriously about 10 calls an hour on average. If I didn't pick up, he'd call repeated until I did, and leave voicemails. He would say things like "I'm so much happier without you," while on the phone with me. Or he'd call and ask me to get back together with him. I said no each time. The final straw was after the breakup. He still had stuff at my apartment, which was in a gated community. I was going to drop it off at his friend's house later the next day. He showed up at the complex, stood outside my window for I don't know how long and proceeded to call me at about 12:30 a.m. I am dead asleep. The call wakes me up. I naively let him in to get his stuff. He didn't leave right away. Insisted on attempting to get back with him. He tried for an hour. I stayed my ground and said no. Once he realized he wasn't going to get me back, he stormed out. The next day I got a message over Facebook saying that I should get tested because he slept with any girl who would have him while he and I were together. I'm clean and have been since. I still have the message from him to remind me if he tried to come back in my life, don't let him. I changed my phone number a few days later because the calls wouldn't stop, deleted and blocked him off of Facebook, unfriended his friends and family. I recently found out he has sent me some messages over Facebook trying to find out how I am. I responded very harshly and said basically I am not interested in having you in my life, don't contact me again. Then I blocked that account he used. In my senior year of high school I had an ex wait in front of my house for an hour. She thought I was home so she kept ringing my doorbell. So I came home from practice and saw her bawling her eyes out begging me to take her back. I of course said no. She was kind of a cliché so she threatened to kill herself and tell all of my friends she was pregnant with my child. I laughingly told her to F off. This is where I saw a side of her I had no idea existed. This 5 feet 2 inches chick gets in boxer stance and puts her fists up, ready to brawl. I was stunned, so she takes a swing at my face and misses the first time. I didn't have it in me to harm a pregnant 17-year-old so I start backing off. I try to get inside my house when she jumps on my back piggyback style trying to choke me out and take me down. I'm not afraid to admit I was getting my butt kicked. I finally break free and get inside my house. That was the last time I saw her. She ended up keeping true to her threats, told all of my friends she was preggers. Jesus Christ, what a headache. Left me a scar to remember me of all of our good times.
Congratulations, you've made it to the end. We want to thank you again for giving us a few minutes of your time, and we wish you have a great rest of your day, night, or whenever you're watching this. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to subscribe, it really does help us a lot. That's it from me, roll the outro.